Friends, I'm Sister Marla Clerks. On this fourth Sunday of Advent, we hear the angels speaking to Mary, calling her to become the mother of Christ and saying, "Do not be afraid." There are probably times within our own lives when we have heard God calling us to a new occupation, to a new place to live, to some kind of new way of being. And maybe it's been something that we've been excited about answering yes to, and maybe sometimes it has been accompanied by that fear or that uncertainty. And so we've needed to hear those words from God, "Do not be afraid." I remember my own call to religious life was one that I did not want to answer. And one night I had a very significant dream in which I promised the Lord that I would follow, but as soon as we started to head out, I became afraid and turned around and ran back to security. I did that 3 different times, each time with Jesus saying to me, "I thought you said you would follow me," and my response being, "I did, but I'm afraid." And Jesus finally said to me, "It's not always going to be easy. There may be times when it feels like it doesn't work out, when you might doubt your decision, but do not be afraid. Trust me and follow me." And so that 3rd time in my dream, I did follow, and I woke up believing that this is what Christ was calling me to. This is what God was asking me to do. And so full-heartedly, I said, I'll give it a shot. I'll try it out and see if it fits. And now 33 and a half years later, it has been the right call. And I'm grateful every day that I listened, but that I also heard those words saying, "Do not be afraid." That command, as it were, is the most commonly spoken word of the angels, or even by Jesus Christ himself in our scriptures. Do not be afraid. It doesn't mean bad things will never happen to us. It doesn't mean disappointments won't come along. What it means is that we know that no matter what happens, Jesus Christ will always be at our side. We know that our whole lives, in their fullness, are in the hands of our loving God. And so each one of us is called to believe in those words, "Do not be afraid." This past year has been a challenge for probably all of us, not being able to see loved ones, maybe even becoming sick ourselves. Maybe our employment situation has changed. There may have been times when we doubted in the goodness of God, where we doubted that God really was aware of us or taking care of us. And yet I think of that song, that Christmas carol, "O Holy Night," where it says, "A weary world rejoices." And friends, I find that that is where I believe we are this year as we enter into the depth of this Advent season, as we approach Christmas and the miracle of God becoming one of us. We are a weary world, and yet we are called to rejoice. We are called to rejoice because our Savior has been born. We are called to rejoice because God has shown us that he loves us so much that he became one of us. A God who wants us to always remember that he is holding on to us tightly. A God who continually says to us, "Do not be afraid." My prayer for each of you, friends, is that as you approach this sacred season of Christmas, that you might come to realize the fullness of God born within you. Emmanuel, God is with us. That you might recognize the divinity in each person that you meet. And that you might continue to find those ways where God is calling you to say yes to following more closely, saying yes to taking the risk of making the difference perhaps in the lives of someone else, where God is asking you to say yes to moving forward into unknown, into challenging, into uncertain times, knowing that we do not need to be afraid because God never leaves us. Merry Christmas, Blessed New Year.